Welcome to the K-Swap 240 video series. You've been anxiously waiting for it, but it is finally here. The 240SX is back at it, and we are doing a K-Swap. That's right, people. And it's proudly supported by Turn 14 Distribution, so thank you, Turn 14, for making this possible. We have gone over and over in terms of what we were gonna put into this car. And Dave, we talked about LS swap, 2J, even a rotary, which would have been very cool.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it came down to the good old K motor.
You can't go wrong with a K,
You
Peter.
really can't, and it's a 4-cylinder. I really wanted to keep it NA 4-cylinder because I love the high revs, and I know it doesn't make a ton of power, but then we thought about what motor is going to make the most horsepower NA, and again, we came down to K. K it is, and these things can make almost 300 wheel.
Easy, yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So who knows if we go there or not. We're already talking about turbocharging, but that is way in the future. This is a K24A2 motor. I picked this bad boy up for 600 bucks. So they are actually very affordable in that sense. And that's kind of the appealing aspect of this is we originally talked about putting an F-Series out of an S2000. And once you start adding up the cost of one of those motors, as we found out the hard way with our own S2000, is they're way too expensive. So you got to get into, for one of those is like 3-4 grand, yeah. So too much. So this was a great option in that sense. However, the challenge is putting this into the engine bay. If you watched a previous video of ours, you may have seen us try it, and there's a lot of clearance problems. The subframe doesn't clear the oil pan, and because this is a front sump, front wheel drive orientation setup, there's going to be a lot of work to make this fit. It's going to be a challenge, but we are up for it because we're going to make this work. There's no way that we're giving up on this. It's going to fit in there, and that's going to be because the guys at NV Auto are going to help us out. So we're going to actually finish just taking a couple small things out of this car, like the wiring harness, maybe the rad and the fan, the intercooler. Just take it, strip it down. Then it's going to go over to NV Auto, where we're going to work with them to mock it up, see if we need to build a custom subframe where we can retain the factory oil pan, or do it the opposite way where we have to put an oil pan, build a custom oil pan on it. However, the other parts of this build, there are some solutions for us. Because we're going rear-wheel drive, we talked about using an S2000 transmission, and they are, I wouldn't say, you know, incredibly rare, but still pretty expensive units. They're like 900 bucks to about $1,200. But the problem with them is they're very fragile. So if you get into boost, they don't like to handle any type of torque. So what did we come up with? Well, we spoke to the guys over at K Miata who put Ks into Miatas. And they have been working very hard on this whole adapter plate setup for, can you guess what this is? A BMW transmission. So these are, I think they're ZF 5 speeds and 6 speeds that you can get out of E36 and E46 BMWs, and they're readily available. I picked this one up for $250. It's a 5-speed. We figured we would do that instead of go with the 6-speed for gearing purposes, but you can get into their whole adapter kit, which essentially bolts this transmission on. You use a BMW clutch and flywheel, or I'm sorry, clutch pressure plate and clutch, which we'll source. And there's a few other things that we may work with K Miata on to kind of make this engine go into the 240, just because they do make a lot of those conversion parts. The other thing we need to figure out is intake manifold. And for an intake manifold, we're going to be using the S2000 one. And there are a bunch of options out there. I know Skunk 2, a couple other aftermarket companies make manifolds that that you can like flip around and use in a rear-wheel drive application. But to kind of make this project as relatable and as attainable as possible for you guys so you can reproduce this, we figured what better way than to use OEM parts that are pretty cheap. Like I bought this intake manifold for $100, so that's super cheap. That's a great option. What you will need to do is source an adapter plate though, and this is made by JSP. So we'll get into this when we kind of get this motor mocked up and then work on all that jazz, but that is kind of our solution. The last thing I will mention is we will be going electric power steering. So we thought about trying to figure out how to make the power steering work, but in terms of clearances and whatnot, I think we're going to be pretty tight. So that is an MR2 pump that we're going to be using. So again, we'll get to that in the future, but as you can see, there is a lot of work ahead of us here. But I'm so excited to do this. This is gonna be such a monumental project, and I think a really neat project for you guys to follow along and build a car that, you know, I love the 240 and I love the SR20, but it's got such problems with reliability and whatnot. Just ask Adam LZ, man. He's been having a lot of problems with his, and the more I thought about it, I said, you know what? Why don't we put a reliable 4-cylinder in there, which is why we ended up on this one. So I've been very patient not opening these boxes just for you guys. I had ordered a new set of wheels because, well, new video series, it's time for a new set of wheels. I've actually had these SSRs for a very long time on the 240, so I thought, why not change it up? I'm stepping up to an 18 by 9.5 plus 22, and I'm sure you can guess, it is a raised wheel. So these are, bam, wait for it, wait for it, Graham Lights 57 CRs. Check these out. I am super happy. Whoa! Don't worry, they're light. Yeah, I'm super happy about these. They're like a classic 5-spoke design with a ton of concave. As I said, a plus 22 on a 9.5-inch rim. So these are gonna look super badass. They're also gonna give me more tire options. With the 17s, you're kind of limited to a certain extent. So I'm gonna be trying to run a full square setup. So 255s all the way around, which is gonna require a bit of massaging to the front fenders and whatnot. But we will make these work, and yeah, these are gonna look awesome. So as I said, before we head over to NV Auto and get into the nitty gritty, I've got some small minor things to attend to, like removing the radiator shroud, because we're not gonna need a radiator shroud anymore. We're gonna have to go to electric fans, because the K motor never had a mechanical fan like our trusty SR did. Say goodbye, Shroud. And actually, a tip for all you SR guys, the fan shroud and mechanical fan combination is one of the best for the SR20. It's been proven over and over that this with the mechanical fan outperforms a lot of electric fans out there. So if you're trying to keep your SR cool, then that may be the way to go. I'm gonna actually put the radiator back in because we're gonna need it for mock-up in terms of spacing and all that jazz. So it's gonna stay. But the next thing we gotta do is pull this harness, because there's no more SR, no harness needed. I know this is a bad comparison, but pulling a wiring harness through a firewall kind of feels like giving birth to a certain extent. It's like so tight and just keeps coming. Oh my God, all right.
Is it like giving birth, or is it like being constipated?
No, I didn't want to go there, DP. I definitely did not want to go there.
One of us had to.
Oh, yes. Success. There's the old SR harness. Oof, with some broken plugs. Didn't see those, but what we're gonna try to do is run a Honda harness and use a Honda, because I think that's a very affordable tuning solution and has been proven many times over. So there's gonna be some wiring to figure out how to connect to the chassis and whatnot, but we're gonna leave that for later. Well, I think that's pretty much a wrap. All I have left to do is to take the intercooler off, and the next time you will see this car will be at NV Auto. I am beyond excited about this project. I think it's gonna be super, super cool. So if you wanna follow along, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification button. So long, HKS Intercooler, you will be back.